This is the family that controls President Donald Trump. You'll be shocked by the story that almost no one knows. Behind the tweets, rallies, and headlines lies a shadowy network of ultra-wealthy dynasties pulling strings that most Americans can't even see. These aren't your typical political donors pouring money into campaigns. These are generational power brokers who have mastered the art of invisible control, shaping presidents, policies, and entire political movements behind closed doors. Before we reveal the puppet masters, let's explore America's most secretive, ruling families and how they have quietly built empires that dwarf government budgets and control industries that touch every aspect of daily life. Let's dive in. Number 12. The S.C. Johnson Empire. Wisconsin might seem like an unlikely place for a global shadow empire, but that's exactly where the Johnson family built their $38 billion fortress. Since 1886, they've turned household cleaning products into something far more powerful than spotless countertops. Windex, Glade, Raid, and Ziploc became the Trojan horses that put Johnson money into every American home, generating billions in revenue that funds a web of political influence most people never see coming. What makes the Johnsons dangerous isn't just their wealth, it's their strategy. While other billionaires go public and face scrutiny, the Johnson family kept their empire 100% private, meaning no shareholders, no transparency requirements, and no public accountability for where their money flows. Fifth-generation CEO H. Fisk Johnson runs the day-to-day operations, but the real power sits with family trusts that operate like financial black holes, sucking in profits and spitting out political donations through channels so complex even campaign finance experts struggle to trace them. Their influence stretches way beyond cleaning supplies. The Johnsons have quietly become kingmakers in climate policy, funneling money through environmental groups that push regulations favoring their green energy investments while crushing competitors who can't afford the compliance costs. They've held private meetings with multiple U.S. presidents, funded secretive research into corporate lobbying techniques, and their $150 million donation to Cornell University wasn't just generosity, it was an investment in academic loyalty that pays dividends when professors testify before Congress or advise federal agencies. Number 11. The DuPont Dynasty. The DuPont family didn't just make explosives, they weaponized capitalism itself. Starting in 1802 with gunpowder production along Delaware's Brandywine River, the DuPonts evolved into a chemical empire so dominant that by the 20th century, they controlled America's entire war machine. Every major military conflict from the Civil War to World War II had DuPont fingerprints all over it, from the gunpowder in soldiers' rifles to the advanced materials in nuclear weapons research. At their peak, DuPont holdings represented over 1% of America's entire GDP, making them arguably the first true corporate dynasty in U.S. history. But their real genius wasn't in making chemicals, it was in making connections. Multiple DuPont family members served in high government positions, advised presidents during wartime, and shaped industrial policy that coincidentally favored their business interests. They built private schools to educate the children of other powerful families, created think tanks that influenced policy debates, and established trust so complex that even today, financial experts struggle to map their complete reach. The Udzi scandals that hit in the 1980s and 1990s, including the infamous John DuPont murder case, brought unwanted attention to a family that had operated in shadows for generations. I have a question for you. First, I would like to say that it is possible to follow the greatest curiosities of our world every day. But to do so, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, are you already subscribed? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Also, take the opportunity to like the video, so YouTube will recommend more videos from our channel. So leave your like right now. And now that you have done that, let's go. Number 10. The Mellon Banking Empire vaults that vote. The Mellon family turned banking into a political weapon, and they've been firing it at American democracy for over a century. Thomas Mellon founded Mellon Bank in Pittsburgh during the 1800s, but it was his descendants, especially Andrew W. Mellon, who transformed family banking into a tool for reshaping capitalism itself. Andrew served as Treasury Secretary for 3, presidents, using his position to craft tax policies that protected generational wealth while appearing to serve the public interest. By the early 20th century, the Mellons had become the invisible hand behind America's Industrial Revolution, bankrolling Gulf Oil, Alcoa, Westinghouse, and General Motors through a web of financial arrangements so complex that competitors couldn't even identify who they were really fighting. At one point, companies with Mellon backing controlled nearly 20% of U.S. industrial output, but the family's name rarely appeared in newspapers or corporate filings, a deliberate strategy that allowed them to accumulate power without accountability. Their political influence wasn't limited to Republican donations and Treasury positions. The Mellons became architects of modern tax policy, quietly funding lobbying efforts that created loopholes benefiting the ultra-wealthy while maintaining a public image of civic responsibility. Number 9. The Lauder Beauty Diplomacy Complex. Estée Lauder started with face cream recipes in the 1940s, but her descendants built something far more sophisticated than a cosmetics empire. Today's Lauder family controls over $80 billion in market value through beauty brands that serve as front operations for one of America's most effective diplomatic influence networks. MAC, Clinique, Tom Ford Beauty, Jo Malone, and Aveda aren't just makeup companies. They're revenue streams funding a global political operation that most people never connect to the lipstick in their purse. Ronald Lauder, Estée's son, exemplifies the family's dual-track strategy. While officially serving as U.S. ambassador to Austria under Reagan, he was simultaneously building a private diplomatic network that spans prime ministers, presidents, and CEOs across multiple continents. His current role leading the World Jewish Congress gives him access to international leaders and policy discussions that no amount of campaign donations could buy, while his family's beauty empire provides the financial resources to turn those relationships into concrete political outcomes. The genius of the Lauder operation lies in its integration of commerce, culture, and diplomacy. They don't just donate to political campaigns. They host fundraisers attended by heads of state, creating social environments where policy deals get made over champagne and canapes. Number 8. The Bush Beer Politics Pipeline. The Bush family didn't just brew beer, they fermented political influence for over 150 years before cashing out in the most strategically timed exit in corporate history. From the mid-1800s until 2008, Anheuser-Busch wasn't just America's largest brewing company. It was a cultural and political institution that shaped everything from advertising standards to agricultural subsidies while generating billions in revenue that funded conservative political operations across the Midwest. August Bush III ran the company like a military campaign during his tenure, understanding that beer wasn't just a product but a delivery system for American identity and political messaging. Every Super Bowl commercial, stadium naming deal, and sponsorship arrangement served dual purposes: selling beer and reinforcing conservative values that supported Republican candidates and policies favorable to big business. The family's political donations weren't random acts of civic participation. They were strategic investments in lawmakers who would protect their market dominance and oppose regulations that might threaten their profit margins. The real brilliance of the Bush political operation was its grassroots integration. Through brewery workers, distributors, bar owners, and suppliers, the family built a political network that could mobilize voters in key swing states, particularly in Missouri and throughout the Midwest, where their economic influence translated directly into electoral power. Number 7. The Hunt Silver Conspiracy. The Hunt family of Texas didn't just strike oil, they struck at the heart of global financial markets in a scheme so audacious it nearly collapsed the world economy. Led by poker player turned oil tycoon H.L. Hunt, the family built a fortune worth over $16 billion at its peak. But their real claim to infamy came from their attempt to corner the silver market in one of the most spectacular financial manipulations in American history. In the late 1970s, Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt began systematically buying silver contracts and physical silver, eventually controlling 1/3 of the world's available supply. This wasn't just commodity speculation. It was economic warfare designed to profit from inflation and currency instability while potentially destabilizing the dollar-based international monetary system. As silver prices skyrocketed from $6 to over $48 per ounce, the Hunt brothers were sitting on paper profits exceeding $4 billion while central banks and governments watched nervously. The collapse came on Silver Thursday, March 27, 1980. When new margin requirements and coordinated government intervention sent silver prices crashing and the Hunt empire tumbling. The brothers lost over $1 billion in a single day, but the broader Hunt family survived by diversifying their holdings across oil, real estate, and political connections that protected them from complete financial destruction. Today's Hunt descendants, led by Ray Lee Hunt, continue to wield significant political influence through energy industry lobbying and Republican fundraising operations that learned valuable lessons from the silver debacle. Number 6. The Pritzker political machine. The Pritzker family transformed hotel ownership into a precision political instrument that has delivered everything from cabinet positions to governorships while maintaining one of America's most sophisticated wealth preservation systems. Starting with Jay Pritzker's launch of Hyatt Hotels in the 1950s, the family built a $30 billion empire structured through complex trusts and holding companies designed to minimize taxes while maximizing political influence across multiple generations. Penny Pritzker's role as Commerce Secretary under Obama wasn't just a prestigious appointment. It was the culmination of decades of strategic Democratic Party investments that positioned the family as essential power brokers in liberal politics. Her campaign bundling operations helped fund Obama's rise while creating networks of wealthy donors who understood that Pritzker connections could translate into government access and favorable policy treatment for their own business interests. J.B. Pritzker's current position as Illinois governor represents the family's most direct exercise of political power, controlling a state government that affects everything from Chicago's financial markets to Midwest transportation networks, while maintaining business interests that benefit from gubernatorial decision-making. His billion-dollar personal fortune allows him to self-fund political operations while building a statewide machine that could potentially launch national political ambitions. Number 5. The Koch Political Engineering Project. The Koch family didn't just accumulate wealth, they engineered a complete reconstruction of American conservative politics through the most sophisticated political influence operation in modern history. Charles and David Koch transformed their father Fred's oil refining business into Koch Industries, a $125 billion annual revenue empire spanning energy, chemicals, paper products, and data analytics. But their real innovation was using that wealth to build a shadow political party that rivals the official Republican organization. Over 4 decades, the Kochs created an interconnected network of think tanks, advocacy groups, super PACs, and lobbying operations that collectively spent hundreds of millions of dollars reshaping American political discourse on everything from tax policy to environmental regulations. The Koch political machine's effectiveness came from its integration of intellectual, grassroots, and elite influence strategies that traditional political operations couldn't match. They funded academic research that provided intellectual justification for their policy positions, organized grassroots movements that created the appearance of popular support, and maintained elite donor networks that could fund political campaigns at levels that dwarfed traditional party fundraising operations. Even after David Koch's death in 2019, Charles Koch continues to operate what critics call the Kochtopus through updated strategies that adapt to changing political environments, while maintaining core objectives of reducing business regulations and protecting concentrated wealth. Number 4. The Walton Retail Empire. The Walton family doesn't just own America's largest retailer, they control economic systems that affect millions of workers, thousands of communities, and entire supply chains spanning the globe while generating wealth that exceeds the combined resources of most nations. With a collective fortune exceeding $250 billion, the Waltons earn millions per hour from Walmart dividends alone, but their real power lies in the economic ecosystems they control rather than just the money they possess. Walmart isn't simply a retail company, it's a logistics empire that determines what products get made, how they get distributed, and what prices consumers pay across thousands of communities where local businesses can't compete with Walmart's scale and efficiency. The Waltons' continued control of over 50% of Walmart's stock gives them voting power over business decisions that ripple through global supply chains, affecting everything from Chinese manufacturing to American transportation networks. Their political influence operates through business relationships rather than traditional campaign donations, creating networks of suppliers, contractors, and local officials whose economic interests align with Walmart's growth rather than community development. Or worker rights. When Walmart expands into new markets or negotiates tax incentives with local governments, the Walton family's wealth and political connections ensure that community opposition gets neutralized through economic pressure rather than democratic debate. The family's philanthropic operations through the Walton Family Foundation focus heavily on education reform initiatives that promote charter schools and market-based solutions while undermining traditional public education systems that might support worker organizing or community solidarity. Number 3. The Mars Candy Fortress. The Mars family built America's most deliciously deceptive empire, controlling over $45 billion in annual revenue through brands that touch every American household while maintaining nearly complete anonymity, and 100% family ownership that shields them from public accountability. Starting with Frank Mars hand-dipping chocolates in 1911, the family evolved into a consumer products dynasty that owns everything from M&M's and Snickers to Pedigree pet food and Ben's Original Rice, creating revenue streams from multiple daily consumption habits that generate billions in profit annually. Their business model extends far beyond candy manufacturing into pet care, food science, and veterinary services that create integrated control over multiple aspects of consumer spending, while maintaining the public image of a simple candy company. Mars family members are so media-shy that most Americans couldn't identify a single heir despite consuming their products daily, a deliberate strategy that allows them to accumulate wealth and influence without the scrutiny that affects more public billionaires. The family's political influence operates through industry associations, agricultural lobbying, and food safety regulations that affect their business interests while rarely connecting their name to specific policy outcomes. Their wealth preservation strategies include sophisticated trust structures and cross-generational management systems that have protected their fortune for over a century, while adapting to changing tax laws and regulatory environments without sacrificing family control. With a combined net worth exceeding $100 billion distributed among numerous family members, the Mars dynasty represents the ultimate example of how consumer product empires can generate massive wealth while maintaining complete privacy and minimal public accountability. Number 2. The Cargill-Macmillan Food Web. Here's something that'll blow your mind. There's a family you've never heard of that literally controls what you eat every single day. The Cargill-Macmillan clan owns the largest privately held company in America, pulling in $165 billion annually, while staying so far under the radar that most people couldn't pick them out of a lineup. These guys don't just run a business. They are the global food supply chain. Starting as a tiny grain storage operation in Iowa back in 1865, Cargill morphed into something that makes other corporations look like lemonade stands. They own ships, railroads, processing plants, and export terminals across 70 countries. When you bite into that burger or pour oil in your pan, there's a solid chance it passed through Cargill's hands at some point. They're not just feeding a quarter of the world's population. They're deciding what gets grown, where it goes, and what it costs. What makes this family truly terrifying is their invisibility, split among roughly 100 heirs from the Cargill and Macmillan bloodlines. They maintain 88% ownership while operating in complete darkness. No interviews, no flashy galas, no political campaigns. They don't need that noise because they control something way more powerful than votes. They control food prices and supply chains that can make or break entire nations. Critics have been screaming about their influence over everything from deforestation to trade policy, but the Cargill-Macmillans never respond publicly. Why would they? Their power isn't measured in headlines or approval ratings. It's measured in the fact that governments worldwide have to play by their rules if they want their people to eat. Number 1. The Mercer Data Dynasty. Finally, we reach the family that allegedly installed a president. While other dynasties inherited power over generations, the Mercers built theirs like a precision weapon designed specifically to hack American democracy. Robert Mercer wasn't born into wealth. He earned it by pioneering algorithmic trading at Renaissance Technologies, becoming so successful at predicting markets that his approach revolutionized Wall Street itself. But Mercer's real innovation wasn't financial, it was political. Along with his daughter Rebecca, he began moving serious money into causes other billionaires wouldn't touch: anti-establishment media, psychological profiling, and behavioral manipulation. They became early financiers of Breitbart News, transforming it from a fringe conservative website into a digital propaganda machine that could amplify scandals, destroy political opponents, and control narratives faster than traditional media could respond. The breakthrough came with Cambridge Analytica, where the Mercers invested at least $15 million in a company that harvested psychological profiles of 87 million Facebook users. This wasn't traditional political advertising. It was psychological warfare disguised as social media strategy, targeting individual voters with messages designed to trigger specific emotional responses without them knowing who was behind the manipulation or why they were seeing it. When Trump's 2016 campaign was falling apart, Rebecca Mercer stepped in not just as a donor, but as the power broker who allegedly orchestrated the removal of Paul Manafort and the hiring of Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway, both longtime Mercer allies. Are you seeing this video that is appearing on the screen? Click on it because I have set it aside especially for you to watch. If you like this video, I'm sure you'll like our recommendation. Well, that's it, and until next time, Curious One.